Step right up. Climb aboard. The caravan is waiting.
Ghost. Rot. There's a house on Cherry Lane, Victorian, 3 stories tall, perched near the bayside of the Jersey Shore. White trim kissed by salt light. Shutters the color of dried lavender. A wraparound porch with wicker chairs that creaked just right in the wind. Hanging flower baskets overflowed every summer. Bay windows caught the golden hour like stained glass in a chapel. The air always smelled like sea salt and lilac. You could hear gulls and lawn sprinklers in the same breath. There was a swing hanging from the big tree out front, an old maple, roots like fingers clutching the soil. Its bark still wears a heart carved from years ago, R and R. Once, the house buzzed. You'd hear laughter from upstairs, bare feet on hardwood, a woman singing in the kitchen while pasta boiled over, toys scattered like confetti, shoes lined up in crooked rows by the door, neighbors waved, people said things like,
"What a lovely home."
and they meant it. It was a house full of life, a place that held its people like cupped hands. But even the prettiest roses eventually decay. My name is Richard. Once I was a husband, a father. Now I am the mildew in her thoughts, the damp thing in her dreams. And still, she does not sleep. There are whispers here that do not ride the air, but sink, heavy as damp soil over a coffin, into the marrow of your bones. And if you stand close enough, you can feel them. And here, no clocks here, no doors, just the silence between heartbeats, the dim hush of a hallway without walls. A warmth once brushed the back of my neck, something gentle, calling me forward. But I turned toward the noise. A boy crying, a woman breaking, a little girl lost. Then, my name said like a prayer.
Richard.
I drifted, and the warmth faded. Now I move like breath through still rooms. Each step folds the memory beneath it. Shadows lengthen when I pass. Time doesn't. There is no weight here, not even of sorrow, only a settling. Dust that never lifts. I don't speak. I remember. And remembering is heavy. The photographs curl inward. The mirrors don't reflect. And somewhere in the quiet, a child whispers to no one.
I think there's something in the closet.
I press myself into corners, behind coats, beneath floorboards. I watch. And whatever I am now, it watches back. It happened in the middle of a sentence. Rachel was drying her hands on a dish towel. Owen and Ellie were fighting over the red plastic cup, the one with the chipped rim and the elephant sticker half peeled off. And I, stupid as ever, said something like, "It's always the goddamn cup!" Then everything tipped. Not the room, not the ground. Me. Like I folded from the inside out. My knees buckled. My lungs turned into rusted bells. The tile floor rushed up with no warning. There was a moment of terrible silence in my mind. Rachel shouted my name. The dish towel landed in the soup. Ellie screamed. I felt wetness in my collar, not sweat, not water, warm, metallic. Rachel's hands were on my cheeks, trying to lift my face. I remember her eyes most, wide, dilated, uncomprehending. She said my name again, quieter this time, like she didn't want anyone to hear. I saw Ellie from the corner of my vision, just a blurred flash, crying with the elephant cup dropped at her feet and forgotten. And Owen, my boy, he slapped me. He must have thought I was pretending. It was our game. I'd smother him in kisses when he fake slept, and he'd slap my cheek when I played dead.
Wake up, mister.
He whispered.
Wake up.
That's the last thing I felt. The sting of love. I felt the call to follow the light, but the dark was warmer, It curled around my name like a secret, whispering that graves are not for the dead. They are for the forgotten. There was no tunnel, no white light, no dead relatives waiting in line. Just a hallway I couldn't name, full of stillness. A silence so thick you'd think it was alive. And somewhere in that dark, I turned away from the pull. Because love, I thought, was worth staying for. So I stayed, and the house held its breath. I'd rot before I'd leave my family. I didn't understand at the time that love was a lot like roses. There's a strange kind of silence that follows death. Not the quiet of rest or peace, but a hollow absence, like sound itself packed up and moved out. I spent my first year dead watching. The funeral was held on a Saturday, late March. The air smelled like thawed earth and church flowers. I stood in the back of the room and watched them carry me in. My own body, pale and waxy in that too large suit Rachel picked out, the one I used to save for weddings. My hands folded like I was praying. I never prayed like that when I was alive. Rachel held Owen so tight he squirmed. She was trying to be strong, trying to be the wall, but her lips wouldn't stop trembling. Ellie wouldn't look at the casket. She kept her face buried in Rachel's side, whispering something I couldn't hear. Her hair was wild, tangled. No one had brushed it. When they came forward for the viewing, Owen broke free, climbed up the step stool beside the casket, and slapped my face.
Wake up, mister.
He said. And then he started to cry when he finally realized Daddy wasn't going to be playing anymore.
Daddy, get up.
Rachel pulled him away, but he didn't stop. Not until they were outside, where no one could hear but the wind. On my wrist, I saw it, bright against the drained color of my skin. A beaded bracelet. The one Ellie made me in preschool. Blue, green, and crooked little letters that spelled Dad. She used to get mad when I took it off for work, and nestled beside my folded hands was Owen's favorite toy, a chipped plastic stegosaurus, the kind he used to take everywhere, even to bed. I heard him whisper to Rachel,
So Daddy won't be lonely in the ground.
They tucked a Polaroid beneath my lapel, the four of us from last Christmas. Who would have thought I'd be buried with a picture of me in a goofy Santa hat? There was a folded note, too, slipped under my folded hands. I recognized Ellie's handwriting, big, uncertain loops. It just said,
Love you. Be brave.
Rachel kept putting one hand into her coat pocket the whole time, gripping something. I never saw what it was at the time, but I knew it was mine. Maybe I knew she would never fully let go, and that's why I didn't. I wanted to scream, to tell them I was right there, that I wasn't gone, that I loved them. But there was nothing left in me loud enough. Like a man locked out of his own life, forehead pressed to the glass of reality. Rachel didn't leave the house for 3 weeks, not even to check the mail. She wore my green sweatshirt around like it still meant something. Made grilled cheese for dinner 3 nights in a row because it was all Owen would eat without crying. Ellie stopped brushing her hair. She said it didn't matter anymore. Said Daddy used to do it. I tried to touch her hand. You can't imagine the ache of reaching for your daughter and feeling nothing at all. The cruelest trick? They were old enough to remember, but young enough to forget. That's the part that haunts me. Ellie was 7. Owen, 5. What do you really keep from those years? Flashes, fragments, a tone of voice, a smell, the feel of arms lifting you up at night. I stayed because I loved them, because I needed to see them grow. But love that won't let go. It curdles, it festers, it stains. And the days didn't roll like they used to. No sun to rise or set. Just scenes that bled into each other. Grief was the only thing with weight. I watched Owen bury his face in my old hoodie and whisper,
Hi, Daddy.
Before falling asleep, I watched Ellie draw a picture of our family at school. Mommy, Owen, Ellie, and a big empty space with a question mark. That's what I was to her now. A question. A memory trying to hold its shape. But I was fading. Eventually, Rachel started sleeping with the lights off again. Then the windows open. Then the bed didn't look so empty anymore. People said things like,
He'll always be with you.
and
He'd want you to move on.
Lies.
a voice buried inside me said, I wanted them to hurt like I hurt. I wanted the world to stop spinning when my heart did. Instead, I watched my family heal, inch by inch. And I hated it. Not because they stopped grieving, but because I didn't. One night, I watched Owen laugh. A big, belly-deep laugh I hadn't heard since before I died. It echoed down the hallway, and I swear it hurt more than dying. How dare the world be beautiful without me in it? I stayed. I stayed through birthdays and dentist appointments, through report cards and stomach bugs, through nights Rachel sobbed into the pillow, and mornings when she didn't cry at all. The house was still mine, but the life inside it no longer was. And every day I stayed, something changed in me. I started to forget what my own voice sounded like. My hands, once calloused from work, felt soft, translucent, like paper soaked through. Sometimes I'd find myself pressed into closets, hiding from light, from laughter. I told myself it was just easier that way. But even I knew something in me was starting to turn. I thought it would pass. The ache, the stillness, the grief. But it didn't. It settled inside me like fog in a basement, damp and silent. And day by day, it got harder to tell what was memory and what was presence. I watched. I stayed close. I lingered in corners where breath had once passed between us. The hallway outside the bathroom, where Ellie used to sing off-key while brushing her teeth. The kitchen stool Owen always dragged to the fridge with that stubborn scrape. The spot on the mattress where Rachel curled into me on cold nights. I watched them for a year, a full turn of the earth, snowfalls, picnics, board games. I saw Rachel weep into her coffee the morning she finally stopped setting a fourth plate at the table. I watched her check the locks twice before bed, every night, like she was waiting for something. She was. The house had gotten quieter. They laughed less, smiled in pieces, but they continued healing. I could see it. Memories that used to mean everything began to shrink, lose their edges. Owen forgot our handshake. Ellie forgot the way I used to carry her up the stairs upside down and call her Miss Bat. Once I caught her drawing at the kitchen table, a picture of her family, herself, Mommy, Owen, and someone else. In the background, dark, with two long arms and a face that didn't belong. I wasn't Daddy anymore. I was the shape behind the window. I stayed anyway, even though the air grew thick and bitter, even though my presence left frost on the windows. I told myself it was love, but love, unattended, ferments, and grief left too long in the body begins to turn. I don't know when it happened. It wasn't a moment. Not really. More like a slow warping, like wood swelling with rain. One night, I drifted into the living room, and Ellie, sweet little Ellie, paused the cartoon she was watching. She looked straight at me, not through me, at me.
You make Mommy cry.
She said. And just like that, I realized something had changed. I wasn't comforting anymore. I was present. I was heavy.
You are becoming something else.
That unknown voice hissed. It started with a mirror. Rachel was brushing her hair, the same way she always did, slow, patient strokes from the crown down. I used to tease her about the way her tongue would poke out of her mouth when she concentrated. God, it was cute. I loved her then. I still do. Maybe that's the problem. We met in late spring, years ago, when I was in my early 20s, and the world still felt like it had doors to open. It was a flea market by the bay, just off Route 9. Tables of rusted tools and tangled jewelry and paperback books with spines bent backward. Rachel ran the table beside mine. She was selling hand-poured candles and tiny clay figurines shaped like animals. She caught me staring at a fox with a crooked tail.
Looks like you.
She said.
A little rough around the edges.
We spent that whole Saturday talking, then the next. She made the world feel meaningful. She laughed when I told her I had a bad habit of talking in my sleep. She said,
That just means you need someone to hold your hand while you sleep.
and for a while, that's exactly what she did. But that night in the mirror, it wasn't just her reflection. The new man passed behind her, the man the kids called Mr. Bill, Mommy's friend. A blur, a silhouette. And in the silver haze of the glass, I caught a glimpse of something else. Not him. Not me. That thing buried inside me. Something spoiling. Rotting. Something hunched. Something smiling. One eye was larger than the other. Gone when I blinked. Gone when I looked again. I told myself it was a trick of the light. A ghost seeing ghosts. There was a time I thought the walls kept us safe. Now I know they listen. And what they have heard, my lies, my rage, my rot, seeps through the plaster like damp blood through linen. A week later, Owen came into the bedroom at midnight and told Rachel he saw something in the closet. He said it looked like Daddy, but not really. That was when I stopped watching from the corners. That was when the doors started creaking on their own. That was when the windows began to sweat. That was when I started to rot. I tried to stay gentle. I told myself I could watch them a little longer, that the pain was worth the glimpses. But love doesn't creak the hallway floorboards at 3 in the morning. Grief doesn't smear frost across the inside of the windows. It started slow. A misplaced sock, toys arranged wrong, a photo frame on the floor. Then came the footsteps. Tiny ones first. Owen sleepwalking, Rachel said. He'd wander into her room with wide, glassy eyes and say things like,
He's cold.
or,
He wants the red one back.
she thought it was dreams. Then came the drawings. Ellie drew the house, their family. But now, the dark shape wasn't just in the background. It was behind the curtain, under the bed. Not a question mark, a conniving thing, grinning. She called it.
Shadow, Dad.
I watched from the ceiling beams, from vents, from the shadows of cracked closet doors, from under beds and behind doors where the light didn't reach. And I started to forget what it felt like to be seen. Rachel began sleeping with the lights on again. She left salt at the corners of the bed. She whispered prayers, and sweat dripped from brows and spines. And one night, I tried to reach her. She was in the kitchen, stirring soup, her hand trembling. Her hair was tucked back behind her ears like it always used to be. She was so damn pretty. I stood behind her, not close, just near enough to remember. I tried to speak. I swear I tried to say her name. But what came out wasn't mine. It was like the breath of an old cellar. Mildewed, wet, guttural. And she froze, then turned, and screamed. The porcelain Italian chef, salt and pepper shakers shattered. The pot of simmering soup began to boil. And in that scream, I heard it. Pain.
Please, Richard, stop.
I stopped, but not because I wanted to. because for the first time I realized she saw me. Not the man she loved. Not the memory. Me. What I'd become. A rotting thing. Later that night, Ellie drew me again. But this time, it was just my face. She drew my eyes. Too large. My teeth too big. My face dripping green flesh. And the caption in bubble letters.
He lives in the closet now.
And still, I stayed. Rachel stopped going to work. The kids missed school. There were visits from neighbors. A priest. A man with crystals and incense who muttered something about
a tether soaked in grief.
And I started hearing things too. My name. Low, curling voices from behind walls, from under floorboards, echoing through the plumbing, calling me back. But I refused. I'd rot before I leave my family. There was a time I thought I could handle it, thought I could linger in the corners of this house, shadow-bound and grieving, and not slip any further. I believed I could outlast the pain. But then he came, no longer just visiting as a friend. No, now he stayed. The man the kids called Mr. Bill, Mommy's friend. He was gentle, too gentle. He read books with Owen in the living room, right on the couch I used to fall asleep on. He held Rachel's hand when they watched movies, their fingers laced like mine used to be. Ellie made him a picture, drew him tall and smiling, with a gold crown on his head. It said, King Bill of the living room. His throne was my easy chair, the one with my imprint worn into the cushion, the one Rachel and I made sweet love on, 9 months before Owen was born. That night, we drank cheap wine and watched the Mets win in extra innings. When Owen once asked where he came from, Rachel and I exchanged a smirk and whispered, the easy chair. A perfect night, folded into fabric and foam, and now it belonged to him. I became the space between their fingers. I became the draft that made them pull the blanket tighter. I watched them from the attic vent while he tucked my children in. I told myself I could take it, that it wasn't his fault, that I was the one who left. But something began to twist in me. Not jealousy, not rage.
Rot.
It moved slowly at first, like mold in the corners of an old photograph, like mildew along the walls of a basement, a wetness behind my eyes, a stench I couldn't scrub away. Bill fixed the porch light. He swept the leaves from the gutter. He made them laugh.
He kissed her.
Not lustful, not heated, just routine. And something in me came loose. Mr. Bill stayed the night. That night I started to scream, not out loud, not in words, but in the creak of stair boards that hadn't settled in years, in the teeth-grinding hum of the refrigerator at midnight, in the way the shadows stretched too long across the floorboards. Rachel turned her head when the hallway light flickered. She said it was the wiring. But I saw the way her hand shook. I whispered to her from the heating ducts. I curled around her pillow like fog. I tried to remind her of me, to bring her back. Instead, she started burning sage. She called a woman with long gray hair and coal-black painted nails. She called a friend. She called her sister. And still, every night, Bill stayed. Owen began wetting the bed. Ellie sucked her thumb at night under the covers. Bill held Owen after a nightmare, rubbed Ellie's back when she cried about monsters. I continued to scream through the eaves, the cracks, and the shadows. One day, Ellie drew another picture. The monster's flesh was decaying, peeling off like wet paper, revealing bone and something worse beneath. Its teeth were shards of glass, and behind it, barely visible, a man with a twisted smile and arms too long to be kind. The man looked like he was stepping out of the monster's shadow, or maybe he was becoming it. She didn't name him. She didn't have to. Bill found her shaking in the hallway, refusing to go into her room.
It's in the closet.
She whispered. They opened it. Nothing inside, except me, folded into the dark. Rachel began to close doors behind her, locked the bathroom while she showered, slept with her back to the wall. I didn't mean to scare her, but I couldn't help it anymore. The house groaned with my sorrow. The wood warped beneath my memory. The doorknobs grew cold in the middle of the night. I wasn't haunting them. I was rotting through them. And still, I stayed. I told myself I could stop any time.
But then, why were there claw marks inside the closet door?
Rachel stopped sleeping. My once beautiful bride seemed to be rotting too, flesh and spirit unraveling in quiet agony. Because of me. Mr. Bill tried to comfort her. He could not. She'd toss and turn, drift off for minutes, then jolt awake with a gasp, her fingers clenched like she'd been holding on to something in a dream. But what began as morning twisted into something darker. What had once been insomnia because of grief was now insomnia because of haunting. One night became 2, then 5, then 12. Her eyes grew hollow, purple-rimmed, her voice thin, like paper soaked in tea. The children heard her pacing at night, talking to someone, sometimes whispering, sometimes screaming. Ellie told Bill that Mommy had a shadow that followed her now, and it talked back. She started to sleepwalk. Owen caught her once, standing in the hallway, mumbling.
I said no, Richard. You stink and need to shower, Richard.
She didn't remember saying it. I watched it all from the attic. I no longer pretended to be anything else. Not grief, not a memory, not love. I was rot, bound to wood and wiring and the spaces in between. I spoiled into the concrete foundation because I wasn't trying to haunt them anymore. I was part of the house now. Rachel salted the windowsills and door frames until the grains looked like scabs crusting over old wounds. She hung crucifixes upside down, hammered mirrors into corners with shaking hands, and screamed when her reflection blinked wrong. She called the priest again, sobbing, called the crystal woman again, begged her this time. Burned sage until the house wheezed, until the children coughed, until the smoke painted the walls in gray ghost thumbs. Her fingernails were blackened. Her hair was knotted with candle wax. She carved prayers into the floorboards with a steak knife, laughed like a tinkering goblin. There was nothing left of calm in her. Rachel had become a storm of ritual and unraveling faith. Nothing worked. Bill mentioned a therapist. She hissed. I tried to leave. Truly, I did. One night I followed a strange light out past the bedroom, down through the floorboards. It led to the basement, cold and wet with time. And down there, the voices were quiet. Kind. They called me by my name. Richard. Daddy. I reached for it, but something pulled me back. The floorboards curled beneath my feet like fingers. Nails turned to teeth. The attic screamed. The maple tree outside shivered.
You are not allowed to go,
my spoiled soul said. I had rotted too far. Whatever spirit remained had sunk too deep into the bones of the house. So I returned to the walls and watched. Owen had to wear diapers at night. Ellie became nonverbal. Why? Because my grief had rotted. Rachel wore long sleeves in July. She stopped eating, began washing pills down with hard liquor. She wrote notes to herself and stuck them to the fridge. The children are real. Bill is not Richard. The voices lie. Ellie started crying in her sleep. Owen refused to go upstairs alone. Bill tried to help. God, He tried. He fixed the roof leak, made soup, took the kids to the boardwalk, bought Rachel chamomile tea and whispered,
I'm here. I'm here.
but my rot sang louder than prayers, a hymnal of mildew and grief, a crawling psalm that nested in the walls and screamed where silence once lived. My breath lived in the drain. My voice was the creak in the stairs. My hands fogged up the mirrors. And then came the night of the storm. The power went out. Rain slammed the windows. Thunder snapped the air. Rachel lit a single candle and sat at the kitchen table in silence. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the old wedding ring, the one she'd taken from my cold finger the day of the funeral and gripped in her coat pocket, the one she'd gripped every night since. She slipped it on, then tilted her head, smiling too wide. Her eyes didn't blink. Her lips trembled with the effort of holding something back. Laughter, maybe. Or screams. And then, in a voice that didn't sound like hers anymore.
The goblin in my ear won't stop chewing.
She whispered, giggling with a rasp, like torn fabric.
They say the worms in my skull are rewiring the lights. They say you've been bad, Richard. Very bad. Not in front of the children. You always were such a dirty dog.
And I felt it. Felt the pull, the tether, the weight of our vow. She opened the drawer and took out the revolver. I screamed, but the wind swallowed it. She stood, walked down the hall. Bill turned the corner, flashlight in hand, said her name. She raised the gun,
You're not real.
pulled the trigger. A soft thump, then silence. Rachel tilted her head slightly, eyes alight with something no longer human.
Shh.
She whispered, stroking the barrel like a sleeping pet.
Don't wake the creaks in the walls. The voice in the closet says the walls are listening. And the goblin in my ear is starving. And you're the feast.
She stepped over his body. She climbed the stairs. The children were in bed, huddled under the same blanket.
Come on, kiddos.
She whispered.
We're going up. Gonna be safe now. Daddy's waiting.
I pounded the attic walls. I howled. I begged. But the rot gripped me like a vice of bone and mildew, a coffin of my own making, and held me prisoner in the house my love destroyed. I could only watch as Rachel tucked them in beside my shadow and the attic dust.
We're safe up here, darlings.
But Mommy,
Shh. No speaking, my little worms.
Wetness ran down Owen's race car pajama pants. She kissed their cheeks with trembling lips, whispered promises only madness could keep. Then, in a voice soaked in sorrow and sweet delirium, she began to sing.
Sleep now, my darlings. The stars are all dead. The moon's just a candle that flickers with dread. Close both your eyes, for the dark wants to see, and Daddy is waiting where dreams cease to be.
Two sharp cracks broke the thunder's rhythm. Moments later, blood began to leak from the attic hatch. I never saw my children again. Not really. Not after that. They left for the unknown, beyond my reach, beyond my rot. And I remained. A neighbor called the police, but Rachel was already gone by the time they arrived. I was the wound in her mind, the mildew in her lungs, the voice that taught her how to leave. She stood beneath the maple tree, the same one where we danced the night we bought the house. Her breath fogged in the humid air. Her hair stuck to her face in wet strands. She touched the carving in the bark, R&R, and smiled. She rigged the old wooden swing that hung from the maple tree, wrapped the rope around the thickest branch and secured it the way I had once shown her, back when it was just a seat for laughter and summer days. And now, it was no longer a swing. It was a noose. She kissed my ring first, pressed her lips to the worn band like it was a holy relic. Her eyes widened, pupils shrunk, and then she smiled. A lunatic smile, too many teeth, stretched too wide, trembling at the edges like a crack in porcelain, grief grinning like madness dressed in skin. Then, slowly, she slipped the ring back on her finger. She whispered something no one heard and stepped into the air. She landed in a dark place, a cold place. There was a house on Cherry Lane, Victorian, 3 stories tall, perched near the bayside of the Jersey Shore. It stands empty now. Porch rotting, windows boarded, the attic sealed shut. Some say the tree out front cries sap in the shape of tears. There are rumors that on certain nights, just as the wind shifts and the clouds pass over the moon, you'll hear 2 loud bangs, sharp and unmistakable, like gunshots cracking the silence apart. And then, nothing. Only stillness and the faint sound of breath that doesn't belong to you. Others swear you can still hear a woman humming a lullaby, soft and broken, if you pass by at just the right hour. A tune with no melody, only the wet rattle of breath and sorrow between each note. But the house doesn't whisper secrets anymore. It moans, from the pipes, from the vents, from the dark knot in the attic that was once a man named Richard. It is haunted, and if you stand close enough to the walls, you can feel it.
Ghost rot.
Thanks for watching. I hope you were scared to death. If your heart's still beating, like and share. And if you dare, subscribe for more delicious horror. We'll be waiting, right here in the dark.